historical or eyewitness back.
Only men can own their own planet.
So it's a total fraud.
Dude, we got so many haters, dude. Isn't there a saying about like that hate you something about judge yourself? I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm saying.
Let's talk about the top 10 flawed arguments or logical fallacies I see being used against Latter-day Saints. I want you to get familiar with them for two reasons. One, so you can respectfully call them out when you see them, and two, so you can be careful not to use them yourself. Everyone is prone to using logical fallacies, myself included. And just because you use them doesn't mean your position is inherently wrong. Fallacies are just evidence that, correct or not, your argument isn't sound. I want to help members be able to identify some of these fallacies when they see them so we can do better at responding with.
Dude, see, this guy comes from, he's coming from such a great place, dude. He doesn't come from a place of, let me give you this sword so you can defend our honor. He's giving us let me give you this shield so you can defend our honor and correct where needed, but also have constructive discussions about the gospel
with a level head if we feel a need to respond at all. Coming in at number 10, we've got poisoning the well. This fallacy occurs when someone uses emotionally charged words in order to bias or prime an audience against something before even discussing the actual issues. For example, lots of people like to claim that the Church of Jesus Christ is a cult. Culturally, this is an ugly term that generally evokes pretty ugly feelings. Nobody wants to be associated with cults, but throwing this term around is a great way to poison the well. When Christianity was a minority religion, pagans poisoned the well by claiming that Christians were cannibals, a rather dramatic misrepresentation of the sacramental bread.
I think poisoning the well is like the number one way anyone, and I wouldn't say wins an argument, but it's the number one way anyone conducts an argument these days, because it's so easy to say like, oh, well, someone's on the Epstein list. Well, guess what? Now your whole argument, like they can't be a good person because there's rumors that they're on this list about something or something. So it's like, I think the world has just poisoned the entire well. So now we can't have constructive discussions anymore, because it's like, oh, well, if you can prove that someone did something wrong at some point in their history, then the entire encompassing data set of all those people, or it's like, what's her name, that's Ruby Frankie, is that the lady who abused her kids, but like she was in Utah, might have connections to the church. So it's just like, oh, all Mormons are serial killers. It's like, okay, I guess, sure, we'll go with that.
And wine that represented the flesh and blood of Christ. It is also a great example of number 9, the straw man fallacy. A straw man occurs when you misrepresent your opponent's viewpoint and then attack that misrepresentation.
And I do think a lot of the misrepresentation, a lot of the straw man arguments that come against the church, or us as members of the church, are mostly coming from a place of ignorance. They're mostly coming from a place of, they are going with what they heard. They're going with that poison from the well, that information that's poisoned the well, and that's now what they base their whole argument on, as far as what we believe and what and how we live our lives, when it's just not true.
Instead of what their actual views are. For example, someone recently commented, members use the assertion that the Book of Mormon is true because of the lack of archaeological evidence claiming otherwise. The only problem is that, as far as I am aware, members do not actually claim that a lack of evidence is evidence in favor of the Book of Mormon. It certainly leaves room for plausibility, but a lack of evidence is not positive evidence. This commenter misrepresents our argument and then attacks that misrepresentation, claiming victory over a scarecrow of his own design.
Put your hands up, you lopsided bag of hay.
Now that's getting personal, Lion.
Number 8, the bandwagon fallacy, or appeal to popularity. According to this fallacy, because a certain viewpoint is popular, it must therefore be true.
Literally 100% of our studio audience feels the answer is D, George Washington.
For example, biblical Christianity is billions and Mormons are 10 million. I'll take the billions for a ticket to heaven. By this same faulty logic, you could claim that Christianity must be false because most people throughout the world are not Christian. But thankfully, truth is not determined by popularity.
I'm sorry, everyone, but I don't think that's correct.
Number 7, the appeal.
That gets hilarious, because that's what we live in right now, dude. Either side you're on, you're gonna hear a million voices against you, and you're like, and they're just gonna drag you and make it emotional and make it all these other things that it's not until they're gonna try and just beat you into submission. And we need to stand and not be beaten to submission, no matter which side you're on, right? You should be able to stand up and make your decisions on your own. That's the whole point of agency, and that is one of the core tenets of the gospel. Was that the second article of faith? Men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgressions, right? It's like we're going to be punished for what we do, and we have to take responsibility for what we do, and not the responsibility for the sins of our fathers. Our fathers will not have to take responsibility for, well, most of our sins, but that's crazy.
Appeal to ridicule fallacy. This one is really simple. The goal is to discredit your opponent.
Which is freaking easy for us, dude. We have we're like a church that was like a tsunami as far as the growth arc of our church, right? It took us less than 200 years to reach masses and be in the millions. And I mean, we were do that before 200 years, but it's like, but there's so many things, from polygamy to the fact that we don't drink coffee, the fact that, like in the last video where he was talking about all the funny statistics, like everyone thinks we have, when we went and was playing rugby at Dartmouth University, and it was like the whole sideline the entire time, all they kept doing was, "Number 6, how many wives do you have?" It's like, "Number 8, I'll be your 5th wife." Like, it was just like this is the whole thing. It's like they just make fun of us because of the belief of polygamy, but it's like I personally don't know anyone who's been involved in polygamy. Like, that's so far removed from the generations that have been in the gospel since that practice was discontinued. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we were pretty racist. We didn't give the blacks the priesthood, but it's like, again, are you going to judge me for how the world was 60 years ago? Or are you going to judge me for the fact that I would gladly stand up and ordain an apostle who was African American, who was black, who was African? Like, his color of his skin doesn't matter. It's the content of his character. I don't know whoever would have said that in our history, but so this is like, it's easy to just poke fun and then say, that's why you guys aren't a true church, because you have all these little holes. I was like, dude, everybody has holes. Don't at me.
It's argument by making their position seem ridiculous or stupid. For example, Christians have logic, reason, evidence. Mormons have a case of indigestion that tells them they're right. This one is actually a straw man and an appeal to ridicule, and probably also poisoning the well, but you get the picture. The fact of the matter is that insulting your opponent doesn't make you right, and unfortunately runs the risk of just making you look like a jerk, when in all reality, you're probably a great person. Number 6, the Gish Gallop. Gish Gallops are very easy to spot. They can occur in both verbal and written debates, but the goal of this technique is simply to overwhelm your opponent with a rapid series of arguments or claims. Many of the arguments may be weak, misleading, or even false, but the sheer volume of them makes them seem convincing. That easy. Number 4, the false dichotomy fallacy. This one is fairly straightforward. It's when someone presents 2 options and says you have to pick between one or the other, when in reality, there are more than 2 valid options. For example, you can't follow the Bible and the Book of Mormon. They teach something completely different. Latter-day Saints beg to differ. We have no problem using both the Bible and the Book of Mormon side by side. Number 3, the definist fallacy. This fallacy occurs when someone defines a term in such a way as to make their position easier to defend. For example, most dictionary definitions say that a Christian is someone who believes in the teachings of Jesus Christ. This commenter, however, claims that the definition of a Christian is someone who believes in the Holy Trinity. Mormons don't believe in that and are therefore not Christians. Hope this helps. This is not a universal.
All right, video over. We gotta go freaking find another religion because I don't believe in the Trinity. So I'm not a Christian. Get out of here.
Accepted definition, and one that Latter-day Saints wouldn't feel the need to accept. It is also a great example of, number 2, begging the question. This fallacy is a form of circular reasoning that occurs when a conclusion is based on a premise that is just assumed to be true, but has yet to be proved. For example, you worship a false Christ and teach a false gospel, therefore you cannot possibly be Christian. The conclusion that we're not Christian is based on the premise that we have a false Christ and gospel, but the commenter offers no evidence to back that premise up. It begs the question, why should I agree with that premise in the first place?
Shot. It's good stuff, dude. Yeah, I like his videos. I found him recently. Again, just a guy. He's a great representation of who we are and what we believe, and also a good representation of someone who's doing his best to come from a place of understanding and guide valid conversation and valid criticism, face the valid criticism, address the valid criticism. So we have a church, because every church has valid criticism. You can criticize everything, because guess what? These are all organizations run by imperfect men. No matter how much in the name of God they are, there's always going to be that flawed aspect of the fact that we are imperfect people that's going to cause a problem within any organization, especially the bigger the organization gets, right? But yeah, go subscribe, go follow. His name is David Snell. This is David Snell, Keystone on YouTube. Phenomenal work. He does great stuff. We'll do more of his videos later.